So the big, beautiful bill was officially passed. So we've officially added $4.5 trillion in spending over the next decade. So we got tax cuts and increased spending. Impacts vary across the board, but we should see modest increases in GDP. Now, about a year ago, I made a video on the US deficit effectively becoming permanent, or a permanent fixture in the US economic landscape. And pretty much the only solution at that time, and I said it in the video as well, is to grow out of it. Well, the way Donald Trump has been speaking about it this year, I don't think he's trying to grow out of the deficit per se, but he's trying to offset the deficit effects by spurring on a good amount of economic growth. Because of that, I do believe that we're going to get as close as we can to a ZIRP environment, zero interest rate policy, without going below 1.5%. In this way, even if we do fall into a recession, they still have some room in terms of monetary policy to lower interest rates versus going straight to QE/money printing. Now, what is ZIRP? I should throw in that I did do a full breakdown maybe 2 years ago at this point. I'll put the link in the description here. But ZIRP is zero interest rate policy, and it was first implemented by Japan during their lost decade to combat deflation, and then soon adopted during the 2008 financial crisis by the United States in response to, obviously, the Great Recession. And it's effectively lowering the Fed funds rate to the zero bound, and bound meaning range, it's not an exact number, and it falls between 0 and 0.25.
The FOMC also provided additional guidance on future short-term interest rates, stating that it expects to maintain the federal funds target in its current near-zero range well past the time that the unemployment rate falls below 6.5%, especially if projected inflation continues to run below 2%.
So effectively free money. And the goal of ZIRP is to spur on economic activity by encouraging more borrowing by providing cheap credit. By lowering interest rates to the zero bound, it allows credit to flow more freely, essentially making America feel more alive. Just like a good flow of blood through your body will make you feel more alive. Now, in my last video, we talked about the fact that the Federal Reserve would not cut rates in 2025 unless we get one of these three things. The unemployment rate rises rapidly, and now it's at 4.1%. Core PCE shows 2 consecutive prints under 2.5%, and right now we're at 2.7%. And/or all tariffs are completely canceled. I think if one of those three things happened, we would definitely get rate cuts in 2025. But I don't think either of the three is going to happen. This is why I'm steadfast on believing that there will be no cuts in 2025. And because of this, I can see the next chairman of the Federal Reserve, which will probably be Scott Bessent or Chris Waller, doing exactly what the president wants in terms of lowering rates as much as he wants. And I think Donald Trump, he loves the ZIRP environment. So we're going to try to get as close as we can to that point. Now, I don't think they'll go all the way down to the zero bound, because that's kind of what got us at this precarious position in the first place with increased deficits. I think they'll bring it down to somewhat of a neutral range between 2.5% and 3%. And the neutral range is not really something that can be observed. It can only be estimated, so don't worry about that too much. But it's effectively an equilibrium for rates, implying full employment and price stability / stable inflation. And the reason is essentially to lower debt servicing costs for America and to keep liquidity flowing as much as possible in the face of downside pressure on the economy from tariffs. And I think Donald Trump and his cabinet pretty much have an understanding that tariffs could possibly weigh on the economy in a recessionary way, which is part of the reason I think he's been urging Jay Powell to spur on more economic activity ahead of time, right now, and why he will for sure lower rates in 2026. And I say he, Donald Trump, because it's not going to be the Federal Reserve Chairman or even the committee at that point. They're going to be an extension completely of Donald Trump. He will not be his own man, whoever the next Fed chair is.
And whoever's in there will lower rates. If I think somebody's going to keep the rates where they are or whatever, I'm not going to put them in.
Either way, because of this, I do expect markets to experience risk asset inflation. And that's assets like stocks and Bitcoin, for example. But I do think it's going to affect home prices as well. And the softening that we are currently seeing will be swiftly reversed. For a bit, at least. Now, we could be finding out the next chairman of the Federal Reserve as early as September, although Jay Powell's termination isn't up till May 2026.
You know, your name gets floated out there. You have some odds on Polymarket of being the next Fed chair. Can you be a Fed chair and a Treasury secretary at the same time?
Well, I think it hasn't been done since 1930 something, and I'm very happy in my job here. I think we have lots of good candidates for Fed chair. We will start working on that in the fall. We've been busy. The president's been doing peace deals, trade deals, tax deals, and we are landing the plane on all of those. So we're going to have more bandwidth after Labor Day.
That was not a no, I just want to point out, on the double job. Very interesting. Secretary Bessent, thank you for the time today.
Good to see you.
And if he decides to go Scott Bessent route, then I do think that would be a temporary seat until they hit whatever goal they're trying to hit, and then he'll be removed and replaced by someone else. If it is Chris Waller who's chosen, that'll be more of a permanent seat. Not permanent, but he'll finish his term, effectively. All in all, guys, in May 2026, the Federal Reserve will look a lot different, especially the front-facing side of the Fed, i.e. the Fed chairman. Will be going from someone who effectively remains data dependent in the face of criticism to someone who doesn't really care about the data at all. They may consider the data, but their ultimate goal is to keep their political agenda moving forward, which I believe is a horrible frame of mind when controlling or influencing the flow of money around the world.
Accordingly, it is my pleasure and my honor to announce my nomination of Jerome Powell to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. Congratulations, Jay.